So, Joe, another question I had has to do with in 25 years of kids ministry experience. I have never had a space of my own. I've always had what was called the shared space. I had, the room that was used for everything. Um, and so, give us some insight a little bit about being intentional about having a space that's dedicated for kids, that is kid friendly, but yet at the same time is going to be a shared space.
Sure. So what I learned was color schemes matter a lot, and you can create a space that is clean and functional, um, but also is kid friendly, but also is youth friendly, but also is adult friendly. If you were to go back to my Pinterest page, there's a place in there where we did what we call muted colors. And muted colors, if you don't know what muted colors are colors that are bright and vibrant, but if they're a light color, gray has been added to them, and if they're a dark color, white has been added to them. And what muted colors do is it creates you still get the color, but you don't get the, like I said, the McDonald's red and yellow and you don't need it to be like that for it to be a kids ministry space. Conversely, a lot of times we're sharing youth ministry spaces, and it doesn't need to be the black nightclub. There has to be, if it's a shared, here's the thing that I often see with children's ministry is it's a shared space, but possession is nine tenths. Oftentimes, it's treated as 9/10. So if the youth pastor got there first, and it looks like a nightclub, um, you're going to have to work with your pastor, your senior pastor, and him to find a way to create some of those muted colors so that it actually looks like a shared space. If you walk in, and I've been in a situation where we had, like, the women's ministries took the space over, and there was only about 40 or 50 women in this particular church, and the children's ministry was like 160 kids, but everything was purple. The bathrooms had literally, like, she liked birds, and so, like, there were little models of birdhouses hanging in the bathrooms. I'm like, yee. Um, it didn't work for kids, and I had to patiently wait and pray and seek God and build a relationship with the people in my shared space. So that the people in my shared space, when I discussed changing colors, I always discussed it with them. Our senior pastor knew what was going on again. He knew we were having discussions, and there was some compromise in the space because it was a shared space. And it wasn't really that, they got there first, but it was more, okay, how can we create a space, like I said, in a three-colored scheme of some kind, that with some muted colors. And I remember doing this in Texas, and um, people were they wanted to be in the space. The young families wanted to be in the space. It ended up being one of the nicest looking rooms because it was clean and it was functional. But it was one of the nicest looking rooms, and the classrooms were some of the nicest looking rooms in the church. And so, like, we had even though it was a theme that we did muted colors, we chose a youth theme with the designer we were working with and some of the graphics and things like that we were doing. And we chose a youth theme because I wanted to win the fourth and fifth grade boy. I've learned over the years, if you win the fourth and fifth grade boy, you win the war. Even though they're getting ready to go out, if they think it's cool, if a fourth and fifth grade boy likes the space and likes the environment, the kindergarten through third graders will raise up to it and they will connect with it. But if you shoot for the kindergarten through third grader, you're going to lose the fourth and fifth grader in the environment. You just will. It's I've seen it time and time and time again. But if you make it so that the kids will connect with what's going on in their fourth and fifth grade, especially the fourth and fifth grade boy, it will be something that will benefit you in the long run, and it'll help you. And then if the youth ever want to have a meeting in there, they can have a meeting in there. We used to do our membership classes in my children's ministry because it was the biggest space we had a central space, and then we had classrooms on the outside. And they were originally hallways. We knocked the hallways out and just made them doors. and we would have individual classes taught in those rooms, and then in the bigger classes we would have um, the large group children's ministry. But then we had a veterans group that wanted to go ahead and meet in our space to go ahead and, I mean, this is a veterans group. These are people who were giving flags and giving quilts and things like this to Army veterans from World War II and from Vietnam and the Korean War. And they wanted to meet in our space. And they walked into the space and it was so clean and functional, but it was all done in muted colors that they were like, wow, can we just come in here all the time? But it was a children's ministry space first, but we also shared it with membership and shared it with other things. So that's what we learned, was the muted colors really helped and the compromise really helped. But at some point in time, there has to be some of that. It can't just be, well, this is the adult Sunday school room, almost as if anybody else who uses it isn't welcome. It has to be, a shared space has to be a shared space, if that makes sense. And that's something you have to patiently work through, and again, have the backing of your senior pastor and senior leadership, because getting in arguments and fights with those people doesn't help anybody. But it is something you pray through. Always pray before you talk to these folks, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to be like, well, we want this to be different. And it's like, well, let's talk about it. Let's pray about it. Why? And hear them and listen to them, and that always works better, I've found over the years.
On that idea of shared space, a lot of times it comes down to strategic compromise, that everybody should be able to come to a win, but nobody's going to be, it's going to be just theirs, because you have to share it. And so you're going to have to figure out how it's going to be functional for everybody. So that sometimes can be hard. I know, Renee, you'll talk a little bit about your space here in a minute, but I know your space is very shared. You're going to tell us a little bit about how that works. And Tim, you have a little bit of shared space too. And we're going to let you guys talk a little bit about your environments and maybe ask Joe some thoughts on that. Joe, maybe you could share a little bit more with us about, so maybe I'm not the lead kids pastor. Maybe I'm not even the lead director. But I have a classroom. It's my classroom. I teach in this classroom. I may be the Sunday school teacher or the small group leader, and I just want to make this space kind of special for my kids. I'm not looking on the grand design.
Sure.
Give me a couple of points about doing that.
In shared spaces, I found oftentimes the focus is the stage. So if there's a website called churchstagedesignIdeas.com, and they also have a Facebook page, and they actually lay out for you all sorts of ways that you can create church stage design things. And most of the stuff that they're telling you how to do and teaching you how to do, I mean, a lot of it's honestly duct tape and filters and things like that. And you can create themes for your children's ministry. Let's say you're going through a 4-week theme or something like that. You can create things that can be taken up and put back down, and you can strike the whole stage, and go ahead and you can transform it every week. And you may not be able to do anything else with the rest of the space, but if you have a stage space, you can put up certain things, hang certain things that can be created through church stage design ideas, that can be folded up, put away, and dealt with in that way. A lot of times you can do that. There's also coverings you can do, and there's also what I've done in the past is even chalkboards and whiteboards that you can just slide in front of certain things for certain periods of time. If there's going to be an adult Sunday school class in that room, okay, great, let's have this whiteboard. Let's get the whiteboard. It'll cover these certain things, and then when their class is done, we tear down the tables, we move everything, we slide this over, and then that's over there, and it's used in a different way. And I've done that before, and kind of had facades even on wheels, like 3 different pieces of facades that we had a carpenter in our church create, and then we hung lights on those things, and they hid all the adult stuff behind there and things like that. We've also done curtains. You can do the other thing that you can do is you can choose a color, either black or something like that, drape curtains, and you can have that stuff set up so that all the other stuff that isn't children's ministry oriented can go behind that draped curtain, and then the draped curtains can be taken down. If it's a shared space, the draped curtains can be taken down and folded up and put away for any event. We had kind of a banquet hall that was also a youth ministry center that was also a children's ministry center, and they called it the Calvary Room, and so that's what we had. And we went ahead and it's funny because you couldn't even get them to the older folks to change the name of the space. It was just the Calvary Room. They wouldn't call it the youth center. They wouldn't call it the children's ministry space. It was just the Calvary Room. And I suggested the drape situation, and it ended up working really, really well because we could store chairs and other adult stuff behind the drapes all the way around the room. And then we could hang decorations or foam stuff on the drapes, and it ended up working really well.
Any thoughts from Renee or Tim? Any questions or thoughts about that at all? What we've talked about?
Well, I'd like to get thoughts on the.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, and shared space, that's common, in churches, and I've done that drape thing as well, where it hides a multitude of sins, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yes.
And you put up a drape, and then that allows you to change out on a weekly basis, monthly basis, things like that, and it gives you a nice, simple backdrop, okay, that allows you to be creative in front of it. And so, yeah, I'm a big component of doing those sort of things, especially in shared space. Renee?
Yes, just want your opinion on our shared space in the ministry room, but it has a shared space for other ministry things as well. And I sent Mark I think it's 3 pictures, right?
Yeah.
Mark?
Yep. I'll put those up. Hang on a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. And
excellent.
And I can highlight any one of them and make them bigger if you want.
Okay, we are blessed. The one on the lower, we'll start out with that. I am completely blessed to have the leaders I do for kids ministry. In fact, what you see on the ceiling there has to do with the creativity of Allie Caves. She's just phenomenal, and she's one of our Kidmin leaders. And several of us get together and decorate that and change it every so often. But what you can see is the tables are set up in a U fashion. We honor our adults and their time that they meet in there. We have on Sunday mornings Sunday school with the adults from 9:30 to 10:15, and they like the tables like that. And because we want to honor them, we keep the tables like that. But the leaders are just so great. And even after the adult Sunday school class is over, within, I would say 5 minutes, all those tables go down, the chairs come up to convert it for more like for kids setting, for chairs being up there instead of the tables. However, one of the things that I'm trying to look into be a solution here is the puppet stage that you see on the left there. You know who's working the puppets whenever you see somebody go back there and come out. I would like to know how to solve that, as well as maybe work on some kind of, I don't know if there's a portable stage to go up that you can work with, or a background, like a stage design backdrop for any of that. That has to be portable on wheels, but look kind of like a Disney design, if that makes sense. Is there any suggestions for the front as what you see there for kids not to know who's working the puppet behind there, because they see who goes in and out, and then how to make an easy conversion for those who want to have like living free ministries in there, or other things that don't necessarily like to have the puppets or that nice backdrop of the world for BGMC, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Any ideas?
Well, yeah, a few. Well, like we go back, first of all, let's go back to what we've already talked about, the pipe and drape piece. Like, I'm just looking at that picture right there that we've got on the screen right there. Another pipe and drape to keep people from being able to see back there could be placed in strategically, and you could have people back there or have an individual back there, and it almost works as a backstage. The other thing you can do, if you have, and some of us have this, some of us don't, have carpenters in our church, and if the church is willing to pay for materials, you can build stage pieces with wheels and hinges that fold in on each other, like you would have like any folding wall, but it's on wheels, and it can all fold together and be closed up, and it can be designed. You can sketch it out for the person, and it can all fold together and be stuck in the corner when it's not in use. And then it can be unfolded like an accordion, and it can go ahead and become your backstage. So then you've got that person or those people back behind there, and you've got your puppet stage off to the side, and the person comes from that quote unquote backstage. That's one way to do it. The other thing that we've done is we've had the puppet stage completely removed. And when you fold out that backstage, the backstage actually is the puppet stage. So certain sections are cut out, like remember Mr. Rogers, he had X the owl and he was in a tree. Those murals and those things are built into that backstage. And then when it's unfolded, you have these certain cutouts here and there. And it is actually the puppet stage actually is the entire backdrop. And then you can just use that. I've done that, and we had a giant boombox one time, and where the cassettes would go that's how old it was. But we had that. We had a house, and each window pane was a different puppet, and that sort of different place a puppet would pop out of, that sort of a thing. But it was all holes that was just cut into the backstage mural. So the puppet stage that you have there was completely gone, and the back mural actually became the whole thing became the puppet stage, and it was folded up on wheels, and we just shoved it in a corner. So
okay, yeah, because we need something like that, and for it to be condensed, because there's we're in shortage of space anyway with the different closets and things that we have. So those are good suggestions. Thank you so much for that. We will need that TV screen though that you see up there, right, for praise and worship and PowerPoints and things. So Tim, you have any thoughts?
We've even used bifold doors, and things like that. So
yeah, it's funny you should say that, Joe, because that's exactly what I have on my stage. I have two sections on either side of my stage, and I have these PVC pipes that are yellow with blue vinyl in the middle, and they're hinged. And so I sort of got them in a Z type thing, and we use one side as a puppet stage. And so somebody could step behind the puppet stage in the little cove, and then they could jump in and then do the puppets. And then unfortunately, I have a door that you could actually exit out of the area. But that way, it creates a nice pattern because you have two sides that are the same colors and the same thing, but you have one side could be a puppet stage, or you can use both sides as a puppet stage. One week you use one side, one week you do the other side, and again, it folds up real easy, and you could set it aside, and basically I have it actually hinged with zip ties.
Okay. Is there a website for some ideas for the bifold doors and design?
That's a good question. I just designed them myself. I just kind of came up with them because we actually had a venue. I came up with them because our adult ministries started an alternative service on Sunday nights called The Door. And we literally took doors and just made them. Like we just made this divider out of multiple old, just doors. And I looked at it and went, man, what if that was on wheels? And that's, just what we did. And I bet you if you, but I don't know of any websites, except I do know, like I said, you could probably find it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was on churchstagedesignIdeas.com. I would be surprised if it was on there. But there's all sorts of, they also have a Facebook page. But also, those ideas a lot of times are on craft websites and craft things. And I find a lot of that stuff, again, on Pinterest. I just go into Pinterest and just whatever I want. And I get 6 or 7 different designs, So
I'll shoot you a picture of my stage, Renee. I'll shoot you a picture. It like I said, it was really easy to do. They're very light, so it's easy up, easy down. Like I said, they bifold, so they stack real easy when I'm not using them. But they're very functional. And again, they're since it's bright yellow PVC pipe and like a cobalt blue middle, it looks great.
I think that could be a real win-win for those who want to have different ministry times that are in there and want it to look, cleaner instead of more kid-friendly. But then, on Sundays, we really want it to be, very kid friendly and welcoming to welcome families. We want to grow in families. So
The other option, Renee, I will say this. It might cost a little bit, but the other option is just Googling and visiting any this is something that most people just don't even think about, but looking up there's so many companies that now do mobile church equipment. And if you look them up, just Google mobile church equipment, there's a plethora of organizations that sell mobile church equipment. And that's exactly what their situation is every single week. They're thinking about, well, we're in theater. Well, we're in public school. And they have resources for children, bright colored vinyls, things along those lines. I think the biggest thing to consider is if it's not going to be on wheels, can women and children move it? Because the kids are always going to want to help out. The 4th and 5th grade boys are always going to want to help out with setting up, tearing down, all that. And that's part of the reason why I'm so glad a lot of our churches don't have those particle board tables, and now we have these plastic lifetime, because women and children can move and they can help and they can assist. But if it's something that's going to have to be moved every week and it's not going to be on wheels, definitely want to make sure it's something light enough that the kids are going to help out, because they're going to want to help out.
We have a very strong team as far as in 5 minutes can have that stuff knocked down, the chairs up and ready to go with music when the kids come in, and afterwards. I don't have to say anything. I can be out and I can be speaking to a family, and they're behind it and they're setting those tables back up and we're just looking at something that could be a very much win-win for families as well as the adults in different ministry venues for the multi-purpose room.
Yep. Renee, you said something really important. I think people that talk about remodeling our classes and the environment, one thing you said was other people were tearing it down while you're able to visit with families afterwards. And I know I was in a much similar situation for about 10 years where we had a Hispanic church that met right after our kids' church in the same building. We had to tear down all the props. Everything had to be out of there for them. And there were, when I first started, I'm like worried that we're not going to have time. We got to get it all down. And I'm seeing new families walk out of the church, and I'm on the platform tearing it down. And so I realized two things. And it still had to be down. Another church was coming in. So I said, we have to have a team that's going to come in so that I can talk with these children's parents and greet the kids as they leave. That's really super important. So don't let the environment rule what ministry should be happening. And so that's a really important point, Renee, that you brought up.
That's a real strength of Calvary Church in general. It's just, that's the church in general. We just want to make it a win-win for the different multi-purpose, venues that are going to be using with the rooms. But we also want to see our families grow. And I truly believe what Joe said earlier about making it look like we love families. We love families, and we want families here. We want it to look clean. People know that I'm anal and I like things nice. They already know that. But it's just like, this is so beneficial for us. And that's why I want to be proactive to get the pictures, because we really do want this to be, we really want to propel and winning families and having families come here, and how we can, but we also want to honor and respect the adults that are meeting there on Wednesdays as well as Sunday mornings and the other venues. So
yeah, amen.
This is beneficial.